Hello, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. I am Ryan Summerfield, and thank you so much for joining in, tuning in from wherever you are in the world. We have people coming from Sweden and South Africa at the moment. This is so awesome to see. How are you all? Jump in the chat. Let me know where you're coming from and how you're doing. I love to keep things going, keep things active as much as possible in this chat. So yeah, jump in there if you haven't already. But yeah, thank you so much for joining. This is my second live stream on the channel, actually, which is quite exciting. It is another quite early morning, so if we've got the time of day right here, there we go, 4:01 a.m. I wish it was p.m., but it is a.m. Unfortunately, yesterday was quite a long day. We did a pre-record for a potential live stream next week, because we're currently going through a lot of lockdowns where we are in Sydney, Australia, which is quite annoying. So a lot of times we're basically on standby just to see if we get locked down even more. So but I'm home at the moment in my studio, and I am streaming from my new live stream kit in a box, which is quite exciting. This is the first time this has gone live. I mean, the equipment's gone live before, but it's the first time that everything's been put together and actually gone live, which is a little bit scary. We have someone else coming in from Washington, USA, 11 a.m. here. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining. And do I have the epic lighting shots in your latest video? Oh, how did I get the... Sorry, question from John. How did I get these epic lighting shots? I had this guy. So it was a fun part of trying to plug cables in while doing a bit of lighting work over top. A little bit of multitasking going on to do that, but it was... I mean, it worked. So... Actually, speaking of cool lighting things, let's cut to the montage and have a look at some of these shots of the rig itself and enjoy. So that is the rig itself. I am so happy how this thing has turned out. There's definitely some things that I've already learnt so far in the build itself, but I'm pretty happy with it. And we've actually got it sitting here on the desk. Let's see if we can get some video going on. All right, so here we are on my desk. So I've got the rack sitting over here in all its glory. It is humming away nicely. So yeah, that is the rig itself. Pretty happy how that has turned out. Okay, let's go through and talk about how this thing's actually been wired up and set up. In the original video, a lot of people were asking how did I put it together? What's some of the wiring? So I drew a H2R gear, which we should all do. I mean, it's just the done thing. I mean, John's done some pretty awesome stuff here, so we should, should do it. It's great. So here is the rundown of how I've wired up the system. So of course we have the extreme ISO there as the brains of the operation. I've got a Behringer XR16 as the audio side of the system. Also got an Ultra Studio 4K Mini, which is how we're getting some of the chat functions and also some other bits and pieces in via OBS. I've got a Raspberry Pi 4 with Play-RB, just a 8 gig model, I think, playing that. I have an Apple TV, which I think has just died. I cannot actually get that powered on at the moment, which is a bit sad. I was looking to buy, it's a Gen 3, I believe it is. And it's the model just before they released it so that you can actually put on apps, because I was hoping to be able to actually use an NDI decoder using the Apple TV app, but sadly this one has not got that. But I may actually have to get one now because it's just not turning on, which is a little bit sad. Got a USB-C hub. So actually this is slightly changed now since I built this, because I'm actually running a Thunderbolt hub as well, which was a bit of a late addition to the system because, I mentioned this in the original video, but the Ultra Studio, I was hoping the DisplayPort data would actually pass through on the USB out, because it's got a Thunderbolt in is USB-C and a USB-C USB out on the way out. So I was hoping that would just be a pass through, just like most Thunderbolt hubs would be. But unfortunately, it does USB, but not DisplayPort / HDMI. So I ended up putting this StarTech in there, and that's been pretty handy as a little box. But yeah, it just added a few extra bits. But I do love the fact that this is all just on one cable. So I'm using my Hackintosh at the moment. So that is actually what I'm working on. The stream itself is happening on the Extreme ISO, going straight to YouTube. And so out of my Thunderbolt, out of my rig, it's going into I've got a Thunderbolt 3 RAID. So through that into the box itself. So there's actually quite a bit hanging on the Thunderbolt itself, but I haven't had any performance issues at all, which has been amazing. So let's jump back into here. So we have, I must say, one of the things I was most excited about with this rig was actually having a console inside it. So I've got a 16-channel audio console, which is bringing in basically everything. So the computer is coming in as a feed. I've got the Apple TV coming in as a feed when that thing works. Even got the headphone out from the Extreme ISO coming in, so I can monitor the Extreme just to actually check what's coming out of it. And then obviously coming out of the main outs into the mic in. So actually it's not going mic 1 and 2, it's just for the cable wise. So actually I probably should just get rid of that. But yeah, it's only going to mic 1. So it's a stereo feed going in. Yeah, so it's been the XR16 has been an interesting one to navigate in terms of. So I'm actually used to mixing on large mixing consoles, from Yamaha to Midas to any of these larger consoles. So it does the job, but it's a little bit backwards thinking in terms of some ways of how they've done things. But it is been huge. The fact that I can actually mix it properly, I can choose things, and that's been super awesome. But I'll go into how I've set up the Stream Deck and also as well. I'm still playing with it at the moment, but this is how I've got it set up right now, which has been pretty handy. So that's the audio side. By the way, if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. I would love to answer them. So video-wise, we're going through the splitters. I've got a 4-way splitter for program. Actually, someone in the original video did ask a great question of why am I using a Camlink 4K rather than just using the USB out on the device? And that was a very good point. I don't necessarily need to use the Camlink, but what it does do is it gives me an extra type of output. So the USB will only ever do program. So whatever's on ME1 program on the device will only ever output that. But the outputs 1 and 2, I can put whatever I want. So my output 1, for example, is my left screen here on my desk. So I can look at my multi-view. You can probably see it. Things got darker there. Or I can, but typically I have my left monitor just full screen over there so I can see what's happening. And so the second one can be whatever I want. So, for example, if I have a guest coming in, which is one of the key parts that I wanted to be able to do with this rig, was have a guest come in so that I can actually send them a multi-view. I can send them just my camera. I can send them whatever I want. So that means that sending into Zoom or whatever platform we're using, I can just pick what I want and send that out. And so right now even, I've actually got a QuickTime window open with program on it. So that's using the USB out, but the output 2 is reserved for something else, which is a bit of fun. Now, out of the Ultra Studio, I've got 3 little micro converters in there. So I've got 2 SDI to HDMI 3Gs going out, so to convert the key and fill from the Ultra Studio. So I've got a true key coming out. So I'm actually using today, so this is going into OBS. So OBS is receiving the feed. So I've got H2R graphics, which is bringing in our chat in here. Jumping back into the chat. Sorry for butchering my name. I am quite used to it, sadly. Unfortunately, there's many ways of spelling that last name, but what can you do? That's all part of it. I'll jump that out of the way. Happy to see that you've planned it so well. Thank you. And thank you for making this awesome software. I've been using it quite a bit lately, especially for clients and helping them do their builds. I've got some larger builds coming up, which is going to be interesting to try it out on that. So thank you for making it. It's been fun. And a big up to John Barker, absolutely, for his awesome job, and a bit more love for John. So yeah, give it up for John. Thank you for making this awesome stuff. Yeah, so we'll jump back into the gear here. That's basically how we've got things set up. Oh, I've also got a HDMI to SDI on the output as well, just so I can get an extra SDIs depending on what I need. I've got the 2 monitors on the front, so those are coming out of the 2 HDMIs respectively, 1 and 2. So if I'm just using it by itself, I can still get a multi-view out of there. So if you want to see the actual gear list of each individual part of what I did in the original video, I've got that there, so you can check it out and see each item there. I think I got most of them there, but yeah, I may have missed a few things. So in the back, I've also got 3 inputs. So I've just got 3 HDMIs, can be used for whatever I need. But out of the most part, I've got the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 outputs, which are constantly patched in. I do have access to the ports at the back, so if I do need to do a different wiring depending on how I'm doing things, I can do that as well. Let's jump into the audio side. So this is where things get a little bit trippy and a little bit interesting. So I have got all my sources coming in, so there's actually no mixing being done in the ATEM itself. So if I go to the ATEM and have a look at the audio side, I have only got my mic 1 open, which is the audio coming from the console. So I've got, that's my camera, which has the built-in mics, but nothing else is being turned on. I don't have any mixing going on here. All I'm doing is just leaving this on and letting the console do all the work. I would love to have a few extra features on the Extreme and things like Mix Minus, which would be super helpful for bringing a remote guest, but unfortunately we have to do it ourselves. But thanks for the kind. Absolutely, we're here to support you. This is a fun community. This is what we do. But thank you. So this is how I have things set up. So in my first channel, I've got a lav mic. So I've just got a lapel Velcro to the back, so I can do that if I'm doing a portable setup. I've got my mic here, so that's this mic here, which is going into the console. I've just ordered a streaming bridge, so that is coming in here. So I've got the HDMI going through a... Actually, I've got another one sitting over here. There's been many Amazon orders coming in. So I've got a HDMI audio extractor. So it's just a pass-through device. And that's got SPDIF out, also a headphone jack out. So that is how I'm getting the audio out of the streaming bridge. And that is coming in over here. Apple TV, which is going... It's currently going for split but if I get the new Apple TV, that doesn't do that anymore. So I'm going to have to use one of these audio extractors to get that happening. I've got the laptop channels here, which is the output from the computer, which is connected. So that is actually coming out of the StarTech itself, and that is getting the feed from Mac or whatever I'm using at the time. So that is coming in here. So I've got that as yellow because I don't want to... Yeah, we'll get into the mix minus soon. So playout B, I've got a Raspberry Pi in there doing my video playback. So the countdown at the top and also things as we go coming in through there. So Ultra Studio, that is coming in here. And here is actually the ATEM coming in back in on itself. So I can monitor the audio there. Obviously, I've got that muted because I don't want to have that twice. Now, when it came to latency and trying to sync the audio and video, the Air series of consoles, actually I'm pretty sure all the X series of consoles don't have individual channel delay. So you can't wind in delay on each of the channels. But what they do have is a pitch shifter. So in theory, if I actually start doing things like this, my voice will start going up or something, potentially. Sorry, I should put that on that screen. Because I can actually do things like that, which is not quite what I'm trying to do. I don't know.
Semi-tones, is that going to do it? No.
I mean, it might be doing it. I just can't hear it on my monitor. But what I've done, I've just turned all that off, and I've got my low cut and high cut set off, so it's not doing anything, but it does have a delay in there. So right now I've got 77 milliseconds to try and sync up my voice with the camera. So I just did a record on the ATEM itself just to and did clap sync and then chucked it into Resolve, checked out how many frames it was, and then just did some backwards and forwards. Semi did it. Okay, there we go. Cool. That's a feature I probably will never need. Or hope I never need. Unless I really want to
really get deep.
Anyway, back to it. So that is what I'm using for my delays. So I have set things into 3 different buses. So there's not many auxiliaries on this thing. There are 4 physical auxiliaries in the back. And there is an extra auxiliary 5 and 6. So what I am doing currently is my microphone is being sent to... it's going to my speakers. So these are normally my speakers in my office, but right now I'm using it for my ears so I can monitor things. And these are all set to post faders. So as I make adjustments on the main fader, that will pass through so I can hear what's going on. I've got an IFB out and a Lappy in. So that is, so when I'm doing a Zoom call, for example, I have a mix for that. Because I don't want to be at, so this is where the mix minus comes in. I don't want to be sending them themselves, but I want to be sending them everything else. So I want them to hear my voice, and then my voice is going into the vocal effects bus, so FX1. Once we get into FX1, so if I select that, I'm now sending that actually into a Vox master. So I've got a master bus compression going on here, and that is going into a Ultimo compressor here, just doing a little bit of a love on the way out. And once I go to the master bus, that is not going anywhere, but that is going to the mains. So all of these channels here don't actually go to the stereo. They go to a bus, which is delaying them, and then going to the stereo. What I might do differently, so I'm going to do a bit of playing with this, is I might actually not do the delay. Well, sorry, the delay is actually different per channel. So, for example, this camera will have a different delay to, say, the Ultra Studio or, say, to the Playout B. So I'm running 77 milliseconds there for my vocals. I'm running 21 milliseconds for my FX2, which is my play bus, so my play videos, and FX3 is 50 milliseconds. So they're all slightly different. But But what I may do in future, because right now, because if I'm monitoring the final output, I'm going to hear delay. So I'm listening to myself at the moment as well to hear what's going on, make sure everything's okay. But I don't want to hear myself with the delay on, because I'll be hearing myself back 50 milliseconds later and it's just a bit of a head trip. So I might in the future actually... So the slowest one... the quickest one is 20 milliseconds. So I might actually just turn off that and then add the 20 milliseconds in the A10, for example. So a little bit of playing to be done, but at the moment it's still working fine. So that is how I'm doing that. So these are all going to their respective outputs. Another fun part is that you might notice a sting wave. So you may have seen my video about how to do a sting in the in the ATEM itself. So my sting, so if I just sting back to myself here, that's happening in the ATEM. But what I'm actually doing is I'm actually firing that audio. So I've got a USB stick stuck in the back of the console itself. So that is actually playing when I fire the sting on the, on the console itself. So this has been a very interesting addition, because the ATEM can't play audio. The bigger ones do, but not the smaller one. But this is a way that I can get sting plus audio, which is a bit fun. So, but I'll show that in the companion file a bit later on. And that's just coming in on an aux. So yeah, if you have any questions about this, let me know. I did notice someone talking about the Rodecaster Pro, and that is actually a very good question. So I recently did a install for a client, and he may actually end up watching this. So yeah, g'day Michael. And he was pretty insistent on using the Rodecaster Pro. He saw a bunch of videos and got quite excited about it. And from what I saw, it looked like it was going to do most of what he needed to do. And it's almost there as a console. The actually, yeah, there's the question there. It still shows up in my H2R graphics. I'm using the alpha at the moment, which is a little bit sneaky. Thanks, John, for letting me be on the alpha team for this. So the Rodecaster, it almost does the job. So one of the big parts with the Rodecaster is, let me just pull up the device itself and look at the back, for example. So the Rodecaster has 4 XLR inputs. It has a phone input and also USB. So in my client situation, he was wanting to be able to bring in remote guests on a external platform like Zoom or Video Ninja. Hang on, it is brought up by that wasn't me. Okay, anyway, so yeah, so it has been brought in via so he can bring in people via that. So we have a external computer which is bringing in a remote host, for example. We have the main Zoom, so he mostly broadcasts to Zoom, and that is using the USB. So these are all doing mix minuses. So we can do mix minus through the phone out and mix minus through the USB out. That's just built in. There's no actual settings in that to be able to adjust that. So we got that all wired up and that all worked. The one thing which I didn't look into was that all these XLRs are mic inputs only. There is no yes, unfortunately there's not much that you can do in terms of line level. So we are looking into getting reducers to be able to reduce that, but when we're bringing in line level, yeah, when you bring in line level, the line is way too hot, and also we're getting a bunch of buzz as well. So there are a few teething issues with that. So but the upside about this is that it is a very simple interface. You just got very simple faders in the front. You can just look at it and it will come up super easily. Now, the difference with the XR series, for example, is that there is no physical faders. There's a GUI interface with the software here, but it takes a lot of programming to get it done right the first time. So if you want to get it done, if you want to get it programmed in, that is definitely how you want to do that. Because so being an audio guy myself, I look at all methodically and can actually program in this how I like. So this is super helpful in terms of how to do that. So the Rodecaster, it will do the job. Keep in mind that if you've got extra inputs that you'll need to do, like mic to line level adjustments, but for the most part, I feel like there would need to be a slightly different model for this to work well with the video side of things. But great question though. Aha, John, you're messing with my stream here. I see. Haha. Yes, actually, speaking of, we have been doing a bit of playing lately with H2R graphics, but we actually have a new show coming out, and here is the graphic for that. Return feed. So John and I will be talking about how best to bring in remote contributors. Well, we're going to be comparing a bunch of different options about how we bring in remote contributors. So what we've done is we've set this system as a test bed, as a way of comparing all the different options in terms of, comparing all the different ways of bringing people in. And this season, we may do multiple seasons, we'll see. We're focusing more on the hardware side. So we want to compare different options into how to bring in people into the hardware side. We know people have been asking for software, but we just want to start somewhere. We just want to start on hardware and show a couple of different tiers on how we do that. So this is going to be our baseline, because we were umming and ahhing about it and going, okay, well, any hardware coming in is going to be the same system or the same method, no matter what size of switcher you've got. Obviously, some HDMI, some SDI. So there's a couple of differences in terms of how you would do the adapters and such. But basically, it's the same system. And we also looked at it and went, look, you need a console of some sort. To be able to do the mix minuses, having a console is crucial. So being that I've got an X16, we're just going to use that as the use case. But any analog console, even with a aux, at least one aux, will do the job. So that is what is coming up. So that starts this week, which is exciting. So if you haven't already, definitely keep that in mind. So I believe John is going live tomorrow or today, depending on where you are in the world. And hopefully we will have a new link ready to go. So we'll be streaming on John's channel on Here to Record. So definitely get ready for that. We'll be doing a weekly stream and 6 episodes, 6 weeks. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, because also part of it was John is on literally the other side of the world from us. So yeah, so we wanted to see, because having things locally is fairly easy, but jumping across the world is quite difficult, as I found doing a lot of streams with international clients. Anyway, let's get back to this rack. Now, while we're talking about audio, let me talk about how I have set things up in Companion. So I've got 3 stream decks here, which I'm using to control the stream. So my far left one is used for the so the A2Z macros. So the ways that I'm animating myself, that's all using the built-in macros in the ATEM. So that's a free macro pack from them. If you want to check that out, highly recommend it. So that's what I'm using for the left one. My middle one is this screen here. So this is basically most of the buttons I need for the show. So I'll run through it quickly. So I've got my mic on and off. So that kind of shows me that my mic is open. But we'll get back into a bit more of that soon. I would ordinarily have another monitor for H2R Graphics version 1, so I can do the drawing. So that's going to be used for a green screen, but I'm not using that at the moment because my computer doesn't want to output DisplayPort through the Thunderbolt because, well, yeah, it's a Hackintosh, so I don't really want to mess with it too much. And then I've got my upstream key for OBS. Actually, John brought up a good question about why I'm using upstream key versus downstream key, and it's actually a good question. I've always used upstream keys for things that I always want to sit over top, and for me, I look at downstream keys as if I'm doing a clean feed output. So quite often I'll do a show where we'll have some lower thirds and we just want to record a clean output. And I'm just never going to do that. Every record I'm going to do is going to be dirty. So there's 4 upstream keys in the extreme and I've got 2 downstream keys. The downstream keys I can fade in and out very easily. So that's probably the one use case I would do if I need to do that. But yeah, I've been using the upstream keys. So Sizzle, this was the video that I was playing. So I'm using the playout B. So there's quite a lot of things that I'm doing here to be able to, I'll go full screen so you can read that a bit better. So for example, I'm going ME1 on preview on playout B. I'm running my sting macro to sting to that. And during the macro, it actually does the cut to whatever's on preview. On the playout B, I'm posting video number 2. So I just did a quick edit before and hit play on that. So now on the X-Air, I'm running multiple different DCAs. So DCAs, for those who don't know, are, think of it like, so I've got these DCA groups here. So if I was to bring down my mic DCA, my mic is going to get very quiet. Yeah, my mic is going to get very quiet there. So it is basically bringing down a virtual fader level of everything inside that group. So you can see here that these got number 1 on them, these got number 3 on them, and these got number 2. So these are linked up to those DCAs. So what I'm using them for is a master level of those items so that I can fade in and out those things. So when I play a video, for example, my DCA 1 is my mic. So I can fade that down to nothing and fade it over 500 milliseconds. So when I fire that, my mic will fade down over half a second, and my DCA 3, which is my videos, will fade up, which will go over 1 second, and fade to whatever level I want. So I can set that to -3, depending on how loud the video is. And then I also run a mute on DCA 1, so that's now muted, and DCA 3 is unmuted as well. And that happens instantly. Which brings me to, well, I'll show this quickly. So on the next page, this is my volume tab. So short of having an actual physical console, I can bring up and down each individual volume. Excuse me, sorry, it's still quite early. And this is also my mutes for each channel. So for example, my lav is muted because it's, well, not actually plugged in. So green is clear and red is on as per usual tally. So my mic is on there. And so if I press these buttons, for example, I am bringing down my level and bringing back up. So I've set these to basically adjust by 2. I don't know if it's 2 dB. No, it's actually not 2 dB. So I don't know. Oh no, percentage. There we go. So I was bringing down by 2% and doing a little 20 millisecond fade between that. So I can just use it as a quick bumping up and down levels as I need. And then down here, I've got mutes so that I can mute things as I need them. So Apple TV is not on, so I've just muted that. So I can very quickly and easily go and mute things that I'm not using. And it's a visual thing for me to show that, cool. So if I really want to make sure my mic's muted, I can just go, cool, my mic is definitely muted. That is muting the channel itself. I have the 3 DCAs down here. So these are all visuals showing what things are muted. So if I was to mute, say, the mic DCA, And that, yes, you wouldn't hear me saying that. And what I also have is that, so remember those FX buses that we had on the way out? So these are what is actually going to the world. So one fun part about this, especially with a remote contributor, is say we're in a countdown and we've already pre-lined up things and we're up and running. I can mute things out to the world. So we can have, so if I mute my Vox, if I have my play going, so the countdown's going, but we can have a conversation and still hear each other loud and clear, but it's just not going to the outside world. So that's a little handy trick to be able to still have conversations while you're live. And I have a visual thing showing me that that is what is happening. So that's my mixing page, basically. I'll jump back in the chat and see how people are going in there. Welcome, Stanley, from Johannesburg, South Africa. I have been there once. It's a wonderful place. I went to Kruger, which was amazing. It was when I was a kid, but still remember it vividly. Coming in from Washington. Well, that's quite early on. I should use the scroll down feature. I should learn your software, John. I apologize. What's up? Reaching from the Philippines. Welcome from the Philippines. And John, looking forward to it. Absolutely. I am very much looking forward to this. I'm not looking forward to the 4 a.m. mornings, but, you know, you got to do what you got to do. Unfortunately, Australia is in a really horrible spot for Europe and American time zones. 6 Minute Media is saying, I'm using the XR18 and it plays very well with the Behringer X-Touch for physical faders, like you're an X-Audio guy. Yes, so I did consider an X-Touch, but for my use case, I didn't really see... For most of the things that I do is basically muting and unmuting, and then I can bump up and down levels. So for me, it was a $800 purchase to get some physical faders, and I just didn't see the need in my use case, because a lot of the stuff I do is pre-programmed. But yes, you can absolutely use some X-Touch faders there. Yeah, which are quite nice. Post a link real soon in here. Yes, please do. We will hopefully have a link for you all for return feed coming very soon. John M from England, welcome on TV channels, and hello from Texas. Watch here from the start. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in and hanging around. It is so great to have you all here. Let's jump back into Companion. Yeah, if you've got any questions, please hit them up in the chat, or any thoughts, queries, death threats, hit me up. So we'll jump back into Companion. So we'll jump back into our main feed here. So these are basically my main buttons for the show itself. Subscribe, by the way. I think you should do that. I am getting reasonably close to 1,000 subs. We've got 734 at the moment, which is pretty exciting. So thank you so much for subbing. It has been a huge help for all those who have been able to do so. Oh, hang on. We've got a question from Tom. Could you control the XR18 with the Novation Launch Control XL Mark II Ableton Live controller? I don't know. Let's do I would literally be Googling that. I don't remember what the protocol is for the X-Touch. The X-Touch does have a MIDI in, so I was looking into, so I've got a little USB MIDI fader bank. So yeah, if you can convert the faders from any device into MIDI, and then plug the MIDI in on the back, you can theoretically control that. So I was looking into yeah, if you can get it. So I was looking at getting a Raspberry Pi to actually convert the USB into MIDI, and then you can set each. So hopefully you can actually set each fader, or use some software to actually convert them to the right channels for that. RB Blackstone is saying XR and X32 use OSC protocol. There you go. So OSC protocol. So if it does that natively, then great. Otherwise, you can get some MIDI converters which can do that. So there is documentation about how to use the MIDI there to be able to get that in. John, hit me up in the Discord with that link, and I'll definitely post that. But much appreciated. Yeah, so that is definitely doable. So if you want a physical fader, that's absolutely doable. For me, it was just an expense that I didn't really want to spend because I didn't want to spend too much on this project. I already spent too much, but you know, what can you do? Here we go. We have a link to our first episode, which I am super excited about. So let's drop that in the chat. So jump in there if you want to check that out for our first episode of return feed. Actually, I'm going to jump in there right now and put a reminder in so that I am awake. So yeah, I should probably do that. Here we go. So commands are actually in text in your saved scene file and look like channel 1 EQ. And okay, there you go. That's very interesting. So yeah, there are definitely ways of doing it. For me, I wasn't. Yeah, I just didn't need it. But yeah, if you're wanting a physical faders, absolutely do that. Tom is saying, found an answer on Amazon Q&A panels. Launch Control XL has not been officially tested with the Behringer, but you should be able to use Launch Control XL to send MIDI. Great. So that is information on this device. XR18 has MIDI in-out ports, so you need a MIDI 5-pin and USB adapter to connect. Okay, so I'd be interested to know if the USB will actually... Yeah, so if you get a physical, you can get little dongles where actually will have USB in and MIDI out. I was looking at one of them for the little fader bank I've got there. I think they're around $100 or so to get one of those. So yeah, that is definitely an option if you don't want to use a physical computer or Pi or anything like that. But yeah, there are definitely options out there. Yeah, which is super fun. So yeah, thanks for bringing all that up. That would be a very interesting thing to play with. I should actually look into that as an option. But yeah, jumping back into the companion there. So I've got like a speaker up and down just for my speakers in here, just as a physical control. I used to have a SSL2 preamp box as my controller, but not anymore. So that's basically how I am doing things there. So yeah, loving the companion. I'm using it on pretty much all my jobs now, and it's super fun. Yeah, jump any more questions in the chat. We also have need to convince my business partners to buy the XR18 so I can test. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I did look into the 18, and for me, the extra 2 channels, it was a couple of extra $100 to get the 18 versus the 16. And for me, the only difference that I saw was the extra 2 channels and also the personal monitor output. So definitely look into the 16 if you're looking for something like this. Oh, actually, it's also got more aux outputs as well. So I think the 18's got 8 aux outputs from memory. But yeah, obviously it depends on your use case. 16, my bad. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, for me, the 16 was kind of that perfect middle ground because they got the 12, which I think has 2 aux outputs, which is just not enough for what I need. 4 was just enough, and it cost me $650 or 700 Australian dollars for that, and I was pretty happy with that. Those commands will work over Wi-Fi. Good to know. Good to know. Speaking of Wi-Fi, so yeah, I'm using all wired network inside the rack, which is the only way I like to do things. Wi-Fi scares me, but anyway, I've had too many horror stories with that. Yeah, so that is audio explainers. If you have any more questions about that, hit me up. I will try to answer those. Now, what have I learnt after building this rack and actually playing with it so far? So, cooling. That's something I didn't really look into much, or well, I did consider it a little bit. So at the front, I've got a bit of grill. Like there is open space from the front to the back, but the Ultra Studio I'm noticing is getting pretty warm, pretty toasty. Even on top of it is actually quite toasty. So I might actually have to look into getting a fan potentially in the back. So there is an open space where I get the cables coming out to go into the audio console and also for the network switch. So I might actually look into getting a fan there just to get a little bit of airflow coming from front to back, just to stop, because there's a lot of stuff at the top, so the heat kind of sits in the box itself, which is not great. So definitely consider cooling there, because normally it is fairly quiet, but the fans are definitely ramping up, so you might actually better hear a bit of noise on the mic there, which is a bit sad. Here we go. Question from Victoria. You are up way too early. What is going on? Well, thank you for joining. Question for you. Always get noise on monitoring ATEM Mini ISO, which isn't present on recording. Have tried various headphones with the same results. Any thoughts? Preamps? Yes. I have had some... Yes, that is definitely what I've been finding. So I have been playing with a couple of these. So these are hum eliminators. So don't ask me how they work, but anyway, there's a bunch of cores and stuff in there. Essentially what they try and do is reduce the hum on a signal. So I'm actually starting to add a bunch of these. So just before we went live, I actually added one of these to the playout B, for example, because I was getting a nasty buzz going in on that input. So that's one thing I've definitely noticed with the Extreme and this whole series of things, because I'm so used to using devices with XLR in or AES in and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so it seems that since we're using a bunch of RCA adapters, that hum eliminators are probably going to be needed on a lot of inputs. I did notice that the headphone going out was buzzing. Try and say hum eliminators 10 more times. Uh-oh. I think I broke your software, John. I think I broke it. Yes, so I'm not going to say it 10 more times. That's a horrible idea. Yeah, so that is potentially a fix, because these are also stereo as well, so you should actually be able to put your headphones in line to take that out. But that is quite annoying. So here is, so hopefully that helps. Here's another question. Camille, which and how many cameras do you recommend providing a good live stream with 2 people? That is a difficult question, because there is 100 ways there's a million ways that could be answered. But so for me, I would suggest probably at least 3 cameras. So if I'm doing a stream with 2 people, so say we've got 2 people sitting next to each other, so we got person A, person B, looking at each other, and then we have our line of shooting. So we call that the line between the 2 people. So all our cameras will be on one side of that line. So if we have a 2-shot from the middle, looking at the 2 of them, and then we have 2-shot, and then looking over each shoulder. That is what I would probably suggest for that. In terms of cameras, that really depends on budget. I've been using the ATEM Mini Pros a lot for a lot of my streams. Even yesterday, we were shooting on ATEM Mini Pros for this pre-record. Even the Pocket Cinema cameras are actually quite nice, especially because you get camera control in the ATEM itself. So in that example, so say it was a Pocket 6K Blackmagic, I'd even look at the Sigma zoom, so the Sigma 18-35 for the wide shot, and then the 50-100 for over the shoulder. You can go up to f1.8. It gets a really nice, really nice depth of field on, or lack of depth of field on that. So hopefully that helps. Let me know of your budget and if that, and what kind of setup you're looking for, because also your cabling might be something that you need to look into as well. To be called baby. I've heard that will do it. But hopefully you are enjoying this while a potentially crying baby in the background is going on. So good luck to you. Understand the professional paranoia regarding Wi-Fi. To be clear, the OSC commands work over Wi-Fi and the Ethernet remote port. Interesting. Okay, cool. So you can do it over network. That is very cool. So it doesn't have to be USB or MIDI. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, good to know. Much appreciate that. Camille again. So Blackmagic has announced new hyperdecks. Do you think they did something about noise reduction from their noisy fans? To be honest, I doubt it. So one thing I've definitely noticed with Blackmagic is they like to reuse a lot of their stuff. And when I say that in terms of, so say the Terranex system will be done 100 times. And it's a brilliant system because otherwise you're redesigning the wheel every time. And it's just cheaper to use the same thing multiple times. So the fans in them are probably going to be the same, I would suggest. But also the hard part is that one U of height, it only gives you a 42 millimeter height in terms of fans. So unless you're looking at like the Noctua fans, which are about $50 each, I've got some network switches which I'm looking at retrofitting with some Noctua fans, and it's going to cost a couple $100 just to swap out those fans, and they're not as powerful as well. They are quieter, but just not as much airflow coming through. So I don't know if they're actually going to be any quieter, which is a bit of a shame. I mean, potentially you could try and open up and put your own fans in there, but obviously you would avoid warranty. I would like to get a hold of a Mini Plus. That would be a nice thing to have, but I just wouldn't be able to fit into my rack. That's a bit of a sad part. But yes, that would be very interesting. Oh yeah, what I did that broke is... I know what I did that broke. Okay, so maybe you're breaking it. Are you messing with my system again? Possibly. Anyway, here we go. We've got John here messing with my live stream. Good fun. Kane, cheers. Let you know how we go. Thank you. Let me know how you go. Would love to hear. RB, so Hummer limiters are little transformers that lift ground. There we have it. So yeah, that's one thing that's one downside to, for example, the ATEM Mini, is that it runs on DC, so there is no ground. I believe the X Air has a ground on it, so yeah, having the mismatch of grounding is a potential issue there, which is a bit annoying, but what can you do? In an unbalanced system, those common ground noises should go away if you make sure all the devices are powered from the same power strip. Okay, so all the power in the rack here is definitely all on the same power strip. It's all coming in on one plug. Some of them are on DC, some of them are on AC, but yeah, so it's not a huge amount of noise, but there definitely is some. And I like to keep things clean as much as possible as well. This eliminates the common mode ground differences in the main wiring. The only time that wouldn't help is if you're connecting over 20 feet or more. Yeah, I'm definitely not at 20 feet. I'm only a couple of feet in here. So that is a very interesting one. Andre, thank you for all your videos you've been posting. How would you go about contacting you for some private studio consultation? Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad you have been enjoying the glad you've been enjoying the streams. If you want to contact me about some consultation, jump on my website. I'm just going to put that in the chat there now. I've got a what do you call it? I've got a page at the end for contact. So send me an email, and I will happily and love to get a hold of you. So yeah, for those who don't know, I do consultations. So if you need help in getting your system set up, if you're looking to do a new build, if you have some questions about what should I do, I love doing this kind of stuff because I'm constantly, being in Australia as well, things are stupid expensive, so we try and keep things as cheap as possible. So yeah, I do love a challenge in terms of how do we get things out on a budget. I'm not one of those people who go, oh goody, let's just try and spend as much money as possible. I hate that. So yeah, I'm constantly trying to find ways to do things on a budget, do things cheaply, do things efficiently. So yeah, definitely send me an email. I would love to have a chat with you. Thank you for that. Looking forward to the new show, mate. Absolutely. Thank you. As am I. Maybe you'll be there again at that a week at that time as well. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the show. It's the kind of show. I mean, I reached out to John and said, hey, let's do something like this, because I've been doing a bunch of live shows and having issues with bringing in remote guests from the other side of the world. And I mean, it doesn't get much further away than Sweden from where I am, so it's a perfect opportunity to test all that out. So definitely go and set yourself a reminder for that video. I'll jump another link in the description there if you want to do that. Kanos have tried using same strip as well, never made a difference here. Yeah, so I think it's potentially to do with the fact that there is no common ground on the extreme itself. It's kind of sitting in its own little DC land, which is a bit sad. But yeah, definitely try those hum eliminators. That could be a potential fix for you. Yeah, any more questions, please put them in the chat. I was actually going to go through some of the questions that I had in the original video, because there were some really good questions that popped up in there. So someone suggested using hook and loop, like Velcro instead of zip ties, for the cable management in the rack. Yes, I have definitely used Velcro before, but for me, I like the zip ties because you can tighten it up and it's not going to slide along the line. So especially for the connectors that I want to make sure are not going to come out, that is why I end up using zip ties for that as a preference. There are definitely pros and cons to both, but that is what I wanted to do there. And someone asked, does the Raspberry Pi and Playout B work well? Yes. So far, from what I've found, it has worked quite well. The videos of all the videos in this channel so far have all been on Playout B, and it's been fine. Getting audio out. So that's one thing I did notice on the Raspberry Pi, is that the audio jack on the output just sucks. The built-in audio is just horrible. So I ended up getting a couple of... I'll just clean up my desk before I started. I had a couple sitting here. But I got a few little USB to microphone in, headphone out, just as a little preamp. So I used that to get the audio out, and that seems to have helped a little bit, alongside the hum eliminator as well. But yeah, would suggest that if you're looking at using analog out of a Raspberry Pi. Just looking through those questions. Here we have some other ones. So RB saying, as soon as you plug in the audio jack, the ATEM has a signal common reference measured and confirmed. Okay, there you go. But yeah, I definitely have found that with the headphones out, that we're getting a weird whine, which is quite annoying. Yeah, so I'm not entirely sure what's going on there. Andre, I also have a 4K Apple TV. I'm considering, converting it to SDI using a Terranex Mini. That's an expensive way of doing it, but hey, it does the job. Saw you had a D embedder for audio. I'm looking for the correct SDI solution. Any suggestions? So your Terranex Mini should, in theory, have audio out on that. I believe. But if you're using HDMI, just one of these guys. Just a HDMI audio extractor that has headphone out. It's not the best thing in the world, but it does work. So yeah, if you want that, that will do the job. But yeah, the Terranex Mini should have audio out. That have audio in, wouldn't it? Yeah, because I'm thinking the SDI to HDMI, which has audio, which will split out the audio on the way out. So yeah, either you can convert it to SDI, but that's just getting expensive to do it that way around. Are you using a SDI switcher to do so, or are you using everything HDMI into a A10 Mini? Because yeah, I would probably look at splitting off the audio on the HDMI on the way out. It's just going to be the cheapest way. I mean, this cost me $30, I think, $20, $30. And that will do the thing. There we go. So A10 Constellation 8K. Okay, so yeah, so you need to get to SDI. I mean, you could use a SDI to audio converter to get audio out of that. But yeah, I think the cheapest way is just going to use the HDMI on the way out. Yeah, so hopefully that helps. That's a cool rig. I do love the 8K Constellation. I've been using it a fair bit. Used it yesterday, and it's awesome. It is super awesome. Although there's a few things in the audio land on that which frustrates me to no end. Yeah, if you have any more questions, chuck them in the chat quickly. But otherwise, I think we're getting pretty close to wrapping up. Definitely don't forget that return feed that is coming up in 2 days. So definitely go and set yourself a reminder for that. So it's similar time to this, I believe, in 2 days. So whatever day that will be for you, it'll be I think Wednesday morning for me. So probably Tuesday evening or day for you. But yeah, definitely come and join us for that show. We are pretty excited to bring that in and have you join us for that. But yeah, if we've got no other questions, thank you so much for joining. It's been a lot of fun. I quite enjoy these live streams. I should definitely do more often. If you have any thoughts or suggestions on content that you want me to talk about, please hit me up in the chat. And I will attempt to do so. If this is also let me know on good days as well, and when to sorry, mental blank. Yep, no, that's completely gone. Jumping back in here, RB, is it possible to get HDSDI directly out of a Raspberry Pi? Now, if you're talking about just a video conversion, yes. So if you go a HDMI to SDI adapter, that will give you SDI out, unless you're using HDCP copy protection stuff. That should work completely fine. If you're talking about video out, like what I'm using on the Ultra Studio, I don't think so, but for the most part, yeah, just using a HDMI to SDI converter should do the job nicely. Okay, thanks for your help, mates. You're getting some awesome content out, and as always, great to hear a fellow Aussie. Absolute pleasure, my friend. Thank you for the shout out. Yeah, I think we need more Aussies out there doing this, but quite frankly, it is a small, big country. So there's not a lot of us out there, but we are here for you all. Oh, and just in from John Barker from Here to Record, we've just booked in our first guest from here for our return feed. Details later. I mean, I don't even know who it is yet, so that's exciting. Yeah, that's another part as well. So every week we would like to bring in a guest of some description and have them be part of the stream. So we want to, so we can ask them about their experience about coming in, what things look like for them, and also hear from their experiences about about being brought in. So yeah, we've got a new guest coming in, so that's exciting. I'm looking forward to finding out who that is, and I'm sure you will too. RB Blackstone, thanks. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for all those who have joined. It has been an absolute pleasure. Please, if you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing. That would help me out a lot. We are getting pretty close to 1,000, which is really crazy. It's been a couple of months since I've jumped back into the YouTube side of things, and I've really been enjoying it, especially since I've been in lockdown for the last couple of weeks. So it's given me the opportunity to actually build this rack and do more content for you all. So thank you so much for joining, everyone. We hope you enjoyed. I'm going to sign off now and go back to bed and probably sleep for quite a few hours, because right now we're sitting at 5:07 a.m., which is it's a little early. But thank you all for joining. I will see you in 2 days' time for return feed on Here to Record, on the channel for Here to Record. You have an incredible day wherever you are, and I will see you on Tuesday. All the best.